Good morning, children. In the previous video, you have studied about the fundamental rights. Today, we are going to learn the fundamental duties, another unit of the salient features of the Constitution. So, what are these duties? See, children, listen carefully. Duties and rights go hand in hand. That means they go together. There can be no rights in a society where there are no duties. It's like the duties and the rights are the two faces of the same coin. Suppose a coin is minted one side, another side it is left blank, means that coin has no value. Like that, if we have the rights and we forget the duties, there is no meaning in the life of a citizen. Another example is given here. If we have a right to life, it is our duty to respect others' life and not to injure another person. That is why, keeping all these points in the mind, the fundamental duties are incorporated in our Constitution. So, what are these really the duties meant as? Here you could see that the duties means the moral responsibilities towards the society as well as the nation. That to a nation at large. And to which part of the Constitution these duties are included? These duties are included in the part 4 of the Constitution under the Article 51A. And these are added by the 42nd Amendment of the Constitution in 1976. And look into this carefully. It was in 1976 the duties are included, means here after 26 years of our Constitution came into existence. Chalo, now we are going to study the importance of the fundamental duties. So what are these fundamental duties meant for? You could see here the importance of the fundamental duties. See, what are the importance of the fundamental duties? That means here, why are these duties are incorporated in our Constitution? You could see that the first point, you could see the children, all the keywords are underlined in this also. To make the citizens aware of their social and economic obligations. That means commitment towards the society and the economy. Secondly, to warn them to do and not to do certain things in the interest of their country, fellow citizens and themselves. Means how to live harmoniously. Thirdly, to protect and awaken the people to their cultural heritage. You know that India is having, that means the composite culture. So, it is our moral duty to respect the culture of others also. Then third, the last but one, to tame the unruly elements in the society. Tame the unruly element means those who are not following the law and order. It is the duty to bring them under the control. Then the last point, you could see that to strengthen the national harmony as they stir up patriotism. That means here, as the citizens of this great country, we should have the feeling towards our nation. To strengthen the patriotism, these duties are incorporated in our Constitution. Children, now we are going to learn the main fundamental duties. In the beginning, we had only the 10 duties. Now recently, the 11th duty is also included. Let us learn one by one. These duties, some duties, they support the national cause, that is for feeling towards the nation. Some they tell us about the society, that means the duty towards the society, duty towards the culture, duty towards the environment, and also duty towards, that means the scientific tempo, and also the individual responsibilities. Now let us study one by one. Now the duties which are towards the nation. So the very first one you could see here, to abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, the national flag and the national anthem. B, you can say the second one, to follow, to cherish and follow the noble ideas which inspired our national struggle for freedom. That means here we should keep always in our mind that we should not, that means condemn or criticize the work of any freedom fighter in that way. Then thirdly here, that means the third duty, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity, integrity of India. That means here, we should always stand for the country's unity. Then fourth one, to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. This we have to keep in our mind. It is not the duty of military people alone, or you say the defense people alone to defend the country. It is the moral duty of every citizen when we are called upon to give the service to the nation. Like that, you could know that many of the civilian or the territorial army, for example, this Kapil Dev, recently Dhoni also joined this type of army, civilian army we call it as. Then the next one, to promote the harmony and brotherhood. Again, it is related to the nation. So here, to promote the harmony and spirit of common brotherhood among all people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, regional or sectional diversities, to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. The next one, we move to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. That means India is having a rich cultural heritage that should be, supported by us. The next, we move to that means this is related to the duty towards the environment, to protect the natural environment. That means it includes the forest, then the water bodies like rivers, lakes, and also the ponds, that means the water sources, and along with that, even the compassion for the wildlife also, even the protection of the wildlife. So have compassion for all the living creatures. That is the duty towards the environment. Next, we move to to develop the scientific temper. That means to develop the scientific temper, humanism and spirit of inquiry. So this duty brings alert in our mind that we should not be too superstitious or having the blind belief. That we should keep in our mind. Next, to safeguard the public property and to abjure violence. This is exactly against the vandalism. You know, children, in our country, especially our country, in our places, we could see that anything goes wrong, any strike or anything goes wrong, people first damages the public property. So this should not happen. That is why this duty is included. Next, to strive for excellence. To strive for excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity. That means here the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. That means here we should always stand for the progress and the development of the country. Next, the last one, 11th duty. This was included in the Constitution according to the 86th Amendment Act 2002. So what is this duty tells? This is the duty of a parent or a guardian. That means the individual responsibility of all the guardians or the parents. What is their responsibility? It is to provide opportunity for education of his child, as the case may be, between the age of 6 and 14 years. That means here to increase the illiteracy rate in our country. So these are the 11 duties, that is, these are incorporated in our Constitution. It is our, the good citizens of the country. We should not forget to follow the duties. Okay, children, thank you. I am going to give you the assignment also at the end of this class. Then you have to practice it, go through that. See, already we have given you the printed copies of these lessons. So keep those printed copies with you and also learn all the important points and try to answer the questions what I have given. Okay, children, have a nice day. Children, now we are going to learn the salient features of the Constitution Part 2, the topic Directive Principles of State Policy. So the word directive, you can guess the meaning here. Directive means it is nothing but giving the directions to the state government and the central government while making the laws, the instructions. So the introduction here. The directive principles of state policy are included in the Part 4 of the Indian Constitution under Article 36 to 51. Part 4. See, all the keywords are underlined. You have to note down this. Then we go to the meaning. So what is the literary meaning of this directive principles of state policies? Directive principles are nothing but the guidelines. You can say that instructions are the guidelines given to the both, that means the government, that government should follow it while governing the country. That means here the directive principles are the guidelines to be followed by the government in the governance of the country to take care of the country. Why are they called directive principles? Because the government has to take them into consideration while making laws. That means the government, or you say the legislature, cannot make the laws according to their whims and fancies. They have to follow the law. Without following the law, if they do the law also, that law would be considered as useless, or you say the null. And these principles, what is the content of this directive principles? That means what does it contain? The principles here, that means the directive principles contain lofty ideas, that means the high values, deep human thought, belief and knowledge. That is why it is instructed that that means both the state as well as the central government, they have to follow the instructions while making the laws. So let us know what are the sources, what are the main sources to learn this directive principles. What are the main sources? You could see here, children, the main sources. The first one is here the Constitution of Irish Republic, means here the Ireland, the Constitution of Ireland. Secondly, the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizens of Revolutionary France, that means here the Constitution of France. Next, the ideas of noble thoughts, or you say the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi. You know that Mahatma's dream was for the progress of the country. Then the Charter of Human Rights framed by the United Nations, according to which only that fundamental rights are also included, you know very well. Then next, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was adopted by the United Nations, that means the United Nations. So these are the main sources of directive principles of state policy. Then the main aim of the Constitution. The main aim of the Constitution, what is the main aim here? To establish the welfare state. So what is the meaning of this welfare state? Welfare state means nothing but provide all sorts of the comforts, or you say the facilities, to all the citizens of the country. If the citizens are happy, the nation is happy. So the literary meaning of the term welfare state, what is that? To ensure the maximum happiness of maximum number of people living within its territory. That means to make the people happy and worth living. That is one of the main aim of, or you say the significance of our Constitution. So under these directive principles, they want to brought it into the practice. Next, what are the facilities? That means the facilities under this welfare state, they should provide us. So all the keywords are underlined in this point also. You could see that to provide the adequate means of livelihood to all the citizens. In what way? Encourage equitable distribution of wealth and look into the health of the citizens. That means provide the health facilities also. Then next, the employment. That means the employment opportunities to everybody so that they could eradicate the poverty. Then the economic reforms related to the agriculture and industry. That means here the development of agriculture and industry, so that the rural employment as well as the urban employment, both the problems could be solved. Okay children, next we move to that. That means here the government has some schemes. That means the social welfare schemes, economic welfare schemes, then the foreign policy. Then what are the other miscellaneous schemes introduced according to this, or you say under this directive principles of state policy, that we are going to learn now. Now we are going to learn the various welfare schemes according to this directive principle policies. The first one, you could see that social welfare. Under the social welfare, what are the measures taken towards the progress of children? Then that SC/ST. Let us learn that. So for the children. The Right to Education Act has made mandatory for every child between the ages of 6 to 14 to be provided free education in all government and the government aided schools. This is the measure taken towards the progress of the children. Next, to uplift the weaker sections of the society, especially the SC and ST, what are the schemes they have introduced? First thing is here you could see that the special scholarships are provided to socially and economic weaker sections of the society. And secondly, here the reservation of seats in jobs as well as in educational institutions for SC and STs. And then the next thing is here, untouchability has been made an offense punished by law. Okay children, these are the three measures taken to improvise the weaker sections of the society in order to bring equality among them. Next, we move to the economic welfare measures. So, what are the economic schemes? Improve the rural population, especially the rural population. You could see that the first, the three, it is for the upliftment of the rural population, especially the farmers. How are the farmers benefited? See, for the benefit of the farmers, the government has abolished the zamindari system and introduced the land reform program to do away with the whole feudal socio-economic structure of the rural India. That means here the land problems are solved through the Land Reform Act. Next, it is the second law which is that comes to the help of the farmers. It is the right to fair compensation and transparency in land acquisition, rehabilitation and resettlement bill. This was passed in the assembly in 2013 and it became a law on January 1st, 2014. So what is this law particularly says? The act provides for the free compensation to those land is taken away, transparency in the process of acquisition of the land to set up the factories or buildings, infrastructure projects and assures rehabilitation of those affected. That means here the lands which are taken away by the farmers, they have to be the given proper returns, so they should not face any loss. Again, for the monetary benefits, you know that they have established the banks and the insurance companies for their material resource. The next one is here, that is the Minimum Wages Act. This is for the benefit of the workers. Here this means here to bring the another equal pay for equal work. That means no worker should not be exploited by the employer. Next, that Ayushman Bharat Yojana, you know that this is recently, that means only the 2018 it is introduced and it is for all the BPL or the APL card holder, not the APL, it is the BPL card holders. So they get the medical insurance. It is nothing but the medical insurance. It is recently introduced. Next we come to that the crop insurance, that is known as the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, shortly called as PMFBY. This was launched on January 13, 2016. So here it is the crop insurance. If the crops fail, they get the money. Then the next thing is here Jan Dhan Yojana. This is another ideal of the constitution, you know that, equal distribution of the wealth. And this was announced by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi on August 15, 2014. So under the scheme, the bank accounts have been opened for the poor. Got it children? These are the economic welfare measures that are taken to uplift the rural population. Next thing, we are going to learn the various schemes, the government schemes to improve the economic standard, or you say that economic facilities in the rural area. Here the government has launched various programs such as Integrated Rural Development Program, shortly called as IRDP, and Rural Landless Employment Guarantee Program, that is shortly known as RLEGP. Next, Mahatma Gandhi's National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005 seeks to provide 100 days of guaranteed wage employment to rural households. Along with that, the National Food Security Act that was passed by the Parliament on September 12, 2013, and it is called the National Food Security Act 2013. See, these are the various schemes that were introduced for the welfare of the rural population. Next, we move towards the measures taken to improvise the foreign policy. So, what are the measures taken to improve the international relationship? See, the first point you could see that it is in order to promote international peace and security in India, India opposes the colonialism and racialism. That is why it helped the countries like South Africa to fight against the apartheid and to get the independence. Secondly, you know that India is law abiding. It respects the international law. So it has stood for settlement of international issues by mutual understanding, not to wage the wars but amicably to settle the matters. Thirdly, here India holds the policy of complete disarmament and it has firm against all the attempts of some powerful countries for partial disarmament. That means here India is against to use the weapons on the countries. It always tries to solve the problems amicably. So this is what about the directive principles of the state policy, children. So what the printed copies we have provided to you. So you have to go through that, learn and try to answer the questions. Here are some of the questions given, that means as the assignment you could see that for both fundamental duties as well as the directive principles of state policy. You could see that the questions here, both the questions are given here. So note down these questions and try to answer, learn and prepare when you come back. Okay children, have a nice day. Thank you.